Hello guys and welcome again to my channel. My name is Lone Vic and today we are doing a how to play video of this highly anticipated, highly awaited, long wished for Trudvang Legends from Simon. I don't know if you're still waiting for your copy or if you already have it. Mine arrived just a week ago and I rushed to the table to learn all the rules and record this video for you on how to play this game. I'm really excited to have it here. So without very much further ado, we'll try to dive into the rule set. I'll explain to you how to set up the game, how to play it with a multiplayer game. I will leave the solo rules for my solo playthrough, which I will be doing, and I'll explain the rules then. But one more thing, this is a campaign-driven narrative game and I intend to do this how to play with as little spoilers or with zero spoilers, so I won't be showing any of the story content or reading any of the story content to you guys. I'll be just telling you where everything goes and what are the general rules that you will meet in every story that you are playing. So if you like this video, if you want to support my channel and what I'm doing here, you can always click the like button, hit the subscribe, ring the notification bell and leave a trace in the comments under the video for some, activity going on under those. And right now, without further ado, let's dive into Trudvang Legends and see what's what. Here's the setup of the game. Okay, so for the setup part, guys, we need the map board, as you can see, this gigantic one with the pockets face up, and the adventure board right next to it with the two columns for stories and one column for phases over here, and we place those face up in the middle of the table for everybody's access. Now, the next thing that we need is the point of interest sheet. As you can see, this one that looks like an advent calendar with all of those windows that you can pop out, but you keep them all popped in, and you take an adventure sheet that the game tells you to take. For example, this is C1, and on the reverse you have C2, and you slide it into this points of interest board, like so. I did a little cut here in the middle while I was sliding it in, because as you can see, it's not the easiest job to get it there perfectly, okay? But after you slide it in, you get this effect. So as you can see, all of the episodes, all of the points of interest are covered on this adventure sheet, and you can only see the letters that you will need to refer to. And when the adventure book or when the saga book refers you to any of those points of interest, you just take out one of those placeholder covers and you see what's underneath, and you place it somewhere near the table here. So I'll locate it over here. Now, you need all of those story cards from S01 to S171, and don't shuffle those. They should be in the correct order, and place them somewhere near the table. So I'll place them off, to be honest, because we don't need them too much right now for this explanation, but they have to be somewhere near because you'll be taking a lot of cards out from there and placing them on the board and in many different places. You need to place all of the minis somewhere nearby because you will be placing them on the board quite often. Next, take the enemy attack deck and the event deck, give both of them a good shuffle and also place them somewhere nearby. You also get 4 feat cards in the box that look like this and are called weird. You need to shuffle them as well, and the rulebook tells us to place those in the beginning of those story cards, of the stack of story cards, but basically you can also put them anywhere off the table and use them when needed. And now, basically after doing this, you will have to take a look at the adventure that you want to start in the saga book and perform all of the steps to start the adventure. This will usually mean that you will have to sleeve some cards from the story deck into those sleeves or somewhere around here, but I won't be showing you all of those cards. I will only tell you that there are 5 cards called starting phase cards that you sleeve into the adventure board at the beginning of your very first adventure, which is Child of Light, and these don't betray anything from the story. So you have the level up rules and the defeat rules which you need to sleeve. So I will just place them here. I won't be sleeving them inside. And then you've got 3 phases, which are travel, which should be sleeved as phase 2, engage, phase 3, and explore, phase 4. And this is basically it for the non-spoiler setup. So I won't tell you anything more that shows up on this map in any of the adventures. Now, granted, you also need all of the tokens that you get with the game. So here's a variety of those, for example, and you just need to place them somewhere aside, together with all of the rune tokens as well that you will be using in the game, which basically look like so. But we will be talking about how to use all of those tokens later on during the explanation of the rules. For now, I'll just put them back in the bag, but you need them somewhere nearby on the table. Okay, so now we can move on to the player setup, and well, let's zoom in on the player board over here and take a look at what we have to do in order to set up our character. So I will be setting up the bard right now just to show you everything, and the bard, we need the mini obviously for the bard, and we need to use the base in a color chosen by the player. So let's say that the bard will get an orange base. We should also provide the player with the same color of a baggie, so also orange in this case for the bard. And then we need to find the stack of cards that refer to our hero. So Felarian, the bard, you can see the bard symbol here, and as you can see, all of the cards in the corner here, in the left corner, have the bard's symbol. So we need this whole set of cards, and what we do with those is we take the hero card and place it here in the hero slot with the side that's non-exhausted, so that has the exhaust rule here. We take a health marker and mark the health of the character. In our case, it's 10. We also take the chronicle marker and place it on 0 over here. We look through this deck of cards to find the starting item, as you can see on the reverse, and place it here in the item slot. And then we separate all of these feats to find all feats with a number 1 here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. These are, as you can see, number 2 feats, so we don't need this. We have legendary feats as well. We don't need these. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 feats with number 1 again, so that gives us 8. And then we have a few additional 2s. We've got also ultimates and some legendaries too. So we take the 8 feats that have the number 1, we give them a good shuffle, and we place them face down over here. After that, we take all of the feats that have the number 2 in the corner, as you can see, also 8 of those. These will be the upgrades. We shuffle these, place them here in the upgrade slot, and we also need to find the 2 feats with the ultimate name, and we place them face down on the bottom of this feat deck. All of the remaining feats, which have the legendary keyword on them, should be put somewhere to the side. You won't be needing them too much in the beginning of the game, definitely. The last thing that you need to do is you need to fill this orange baggie with all of those rune tokens that you have listed here. So 2 tokens for intellect, 2 with this wave symbol for intellect, 4 tokens with this wind symbol, 3 tokens with this green symbol, 1 red token with the fire symbol, and 5 of those mist tokens, as we call them, and you put all of those into the bag. So I will do it right now. So here we go. So there is 1 red fire token, 5 those tokens with the skull for the miss count. We've got 3 green tokens. There we go. 4 tokens with wind. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and also 2 blue tokens with the wave symbol. Here we go. Give this a good shake, and the player is ready to play. And you repeat those same steps for all the other players in the game. Alright guys, so now that we have the game set up, we can go into the overview of all the general rules that we need to know in order to play, and then we will go through all the phases. Alright guys, so here we are with an overview of the rules for Trudvang Legends. Now, I will be trying to do this so that I will give you 0 spoilers, so some of the things, some of the more detailed, minuscule things will be left for you to read on in the rulebook. I will just give you an overview of how this game plays and what's going on here with all of the components, and then you will be able to, hopefully with a little help from the rulebook, figure out everything and play this game easily. So first things first, we have this adventure map, which is the kind of center of attention for our game for most of the time. And when we are playing, the game in the beginning, when you are reading the first adventure, will tell us to place our minis somewhere, because this is where we are starting, and all of the character minis, let me take a few more, all of the character minis that are placed in one region, like so, will be called a party. And when you are moving around the map, I'll tell you how to do that later on, you are able to move all together, a mutual decision, because this is a co-op game, or you are able to move one area in different directions. And in each of those areas, there will be different events or different enemies to tackle and so forth and so on. But if you are fighting them solo, then all the rewards and all the penalties and everything goes only to you. But if you are doing an event or fighting enemies as a party of 2 or 3 characters in the same area, you can decide which of the players or which of the characters will get the rewards, which character will get hit, so everything is being kind of distributed using your decisions between those characters. So for example, if these two, the ranger and the bard, were fighting here, this character, the warrior, wouldn't be able to get any rewards or any XP from the one battle because he was not in the same party. So let's get those guys back here in the middle, and this is the center of the story. This is the Book of Sagas. So now this game will be divided into basically 2 things that you will be doing. In the start of every adventure, you will start reading the Book of Sagas, where it will tell you to start. And after you read some flavor text, some story text, the Book of Sagas will tell you that you need to sleeve a few story cards into the map, into specific locations, or sleeve some cards into the stories cards, or sometimes into the phases as well, but very rarely. And you continue doing all those things, and sometimes you will have some branching decisions to take, like for example, choose this or choose that, and then continue to another paragraph. And you are reading through all of this until there is nothing more to read, until the instruction ends with a point of interest, or the Book of Sagas tells you that like this is the end for now because there are no new instructions to fulfill. And then you go back to the map and to the points of interest especially, and you start doing stuff on the map. So basically, then you can put this away for a moment and you will probably get a point of interest or 2. So a location or 2 on the map where the game will tell you that you have to go. And those locations might be marked with, maybe marked or should be marked with those tokens. As you can see, this is point of interest B, point of interest I, or point of interest F, with the accompanying card, which I'm not sleeving so for spoilers. And this means that those point of interest correspond to the ones here on the board. And once you get to those, you can check out what's underneath them and push the story forward. So this is how this point of interest boards will work. And this one, so the adventure board, here in the stories, you will be sleeving in all of the side quests and all of the new main quests that you can start so that you can save them easily. You will be sleeving in NPCs that you meet on the way, and so forth and so on. So all the important things that are not especially here on the map, but will be crucial to the story. Now, when it comes to the player board, let's talk about this one for a moment here. So the player board, as you can see, has a health track. So your health will be diminishing once you are getting hit and you will be trying to recover it. You can never recover more than your maximum for your character unless the game effect tells you otherwise. Here you've got the chronicle points. So the chronicle points, you'll be collecting them through doing different stuff in the game, and this is like currency, which, for example, will allow you to pay for some effects on cards. Like this card, for example, Bard's Instruments, which, as you can see, says to spend 2 chronicle points in order to get a fast attack. So you'll be basically usually paying those chronicle points for triggering different abilities on your feats or on your items, and so forth and so on. Now, the feats are also very interesting because they are connected to what happens here in the bag. But we will get back to this once we are discussing combat. And here you also have the miss track with all of the effects that you can get. And the two things that you will be doing during the game with this baggie is that you will be either using it for combat or you'll be using it for tests. Okay, so now that we know what's going on around the board and what components are which, more or less, let's talk about how we are playing the game in more detail. Okay, so guys, assumingly you've already started the adventure, you've read through the first paragraph of your adventure and you followed the instructions. You've sleeved a few locations, you got your first point of interest marked with a token somewhere. Other possibilities that you can get sleeved here from those cards are also personas, which are usually sleeved into those spaces in the story, and later on you use this token corresponding to a persona to mark in which land it is being placed, because when you are in this land, you can use this token and flip it in order to use this persona skill, usually in battle, but not always. There will be some cards that are entitled world cards, which will have some passive effects. There will be some side quest or main quest cards here as well. And there will also be some enemies. And I will find just one enemy card to show you guys, just so that you know what we are up against here. So there you go. So the game will usually tell you to take out a few enemy cards and place them somewhere near the map, not sleeve them here because they will be different cards for different scenarios, but you'll be placing them somewhere near the map. And the game will also tell you that some enemies appear in some terrains. And what this means is that you take the minis, for example, in this case, the Draugr, and you place them where the Book of Sagas tells you. But there is a little caveat to this, because if you are playing a single-player game or a two-player game, you only put the amount of minis that the book tells you. But if you are playing a three-player game or a four-player game, you also additionally need this token with an exclamation mark to mark additional enemies. So if my Book of Sagas told me that I need to place one Draugr in the Dark Woods, and this would be a two-player game or a single-player game, I would do nothing. But if it's a three-player game like right now, I always have to add one exclamation mark, and this means that there are two, not one, enemies over there. And if it would be a four-player game, I would flip this token to the double exclamation mark side and I would have three enemies over there. So those are like additional enemies for greater player count so that we don't run out of minis, right? And those exclamation marks mark enemies that we have to kill first. So when it's a four-player game, for example, we have three Draugr over here in reality, and first we need to kill one of those exclamation marks, then the other exclamation mark, and only then can we kill the mini off the board. So those are those exclamation mark tokens that are useful in larger player counts. Okay, so I've mentioned this already, and I think that the other types of cards that go here and or on the main board are kind of easier to understand, and also the rulebook does a very good job of explaining those. Okay, so now let's take a look at the phases of the game, because once you're starting the game, you will be going through three phases: travel, engage, explore. But as you go on through your adventure, there can be more phases added, and you go through them from top to bottom until you have to go back to the Book of Sagas again and expand your board, and then you resolve those phases from top to bottom again and again and again until you have to do something else. So first we have travel, and during each round the players can travel first, and then there are some rules when it comes to traveling. Now, if any hero is in a region without any enemies, they can travel to a neighboring region without any problems. If there is a blue border here, for example, between these two regions, you need to have a boat basically usually triggered by some in-game effects in order to travel further down. If, however, your mini is in a space with an enemy, or enemies, plural, if you want to leave those enemies behind, you need to lose 1 health per each enemy that you are escaping from. So for example, if I had 2 minis over here and I wanted to move anywhere, I would need to lose 2 health. A player can also not move from a region that has enemies that are related to a point of interest. Now, what that means is that sometimes when you are uncovering these slots on this point of interest board, you will uncover something resembling an enemy card, and you will have to place those enemies into the zone. So if there are any enemies in this area that are corresponding to one of these slots on the point of interest card, you cannot leave this area. You have to deal with those enemies first, because this is related to the plot. Okay, so basically traveling is very easy in this game, right? You lose health if you escape enemies. If you have enemies related to a point of interest, you can't escape. You need a ship to travel into the seas, and if there are no enemies, each player can move in a different direction, or you can move together by 1 space. And after you move or decide not to move, the next phase in a standard game is the engage phase. And this can have 2 different outcomes, and let's talk about these right now. So if you land in a region that is free of enemies, you need to draw 1 event card per region in which there are minis. So right now, for example, I would need to draw 2 event cards, 1 for this region and 1 for this region. But if these 2 characters were in the same region, I would be drawing an event card for this region, not for this one, because I have enemies here. So only 1 card would be drawn. And those event cards can have different things connected to them. Sometimes you will have to make a decision, sometimes you will have to do a test. I won't be talking about decisions too much because, well, those decisions are pretty easy choices when it comes to the game mechanics, but I will tell you about tests. So, for example, an event can tell you that a player or all the players in the party must or may, because there is a difference, perform a test. And they will tell you that this has to be a test, for example, of strength. So this red icon, which is here. So this is the red icon corresponding to strength. So if you are doing a test and this test is for strength and the test will tell you a number, like for example 3 strength, that means that you have to take your baggie and you have to pull out 7 tokens from this baggie at once. And if you drew 3 strength from those 7 tokens, then you pass the test. If you didn't draw those 3 out of those 7, you failed the test. Let me give you an example. Without any spoilers to the story, let's say, we have, as you can see, each hero in the party must perform a Charisma 2 test. And if each hero that succeeds gets this result and each hero that fails gets this result. So a Charisma 2 test means that I'm drawing 7 tokens from my baggie. And this guy, as you can see, the charisma is the symbol with the wind, has 4 tokens, so it's possible for him to draw 2. So if in those 7 tokens he has at least 2 charisma tokens, none others matter, then this hero will get this reward, discard 1 red status. But if he fails, he will gain 1 of those tokens with a skull into his bag, so I call them the miss tokens. So this is how events usually look like. And mind you that also sometimes you will have to do tests because of something that a point of interest or the Book of Sagas tells you, and the rules for tests are always the same. Draw 7, and if in those 7 you have the required tokens by the test, you pass it, if not, you fail it, and basically that's that. So this is what happens when an event occurs in a place where there are no enemies. And one more thing to mention is that if your heroes are on a ship, on a sea, then you don't draw those events for a region as well. And now, what happens if A hero is in a place where you have enemies when we are going to the engage phase. Now, for those heroes, you don't draw an event phase, but this hero or those heroes have to combat all of the enemies in the region they are in. And how do we do that? Let's zoom in to our player board. So we've got the Dragor enemy, which I will place over here. Okay. And we have, I will move those things here for better visibility of what I'm going to do in a moment. And we've got our hero who will be fighting those two Draugr. So as you can see, each Draugr has 4 health, 2 attack and 0 defense and has 1 special ability. What we do during combat is we have 2 stages, the planning and the resolution. And first we do a planning stage, and during the planning stage, first, the hero can decide whether he wants to activate any items or companions, which are usually laid out above, that have the keyword instant. Now, I don't have an instant item here and I don't have any companions, so I'm not going to do anything right now, but if you had anything with the word instant, you trigger it in the very beginning of the planning stage. Now, if you don't have any instants, we go to the next step. So we have this shuffled deck of 8 feats and we draw 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we put the other ones away over here. And these 4 feats will be the skills and the abilities that I'm using in this fight. So I have those 4 that I will be operating with. And right now, you take the rune bag and you start drawing runes 3 at a time. And this is kind of a push your luck mechanic. So let's draw 3 runes. And I have these 3, as you can see. So these go on the miss track from the first space from the left. And I will tell you why in a moment. And these, if you can assign them to any of the areas on the skills, you should, but you can't move them after assigning them, so you won't be able to reorganize them. And after assigning those 3, you can decide whether you want to end your planning phase or you want to draw additional 3 runes, and I will do just that. So I will draw an additional 3 runes, and this is my draw right now. So I've got 2 greens, and I will place one of them here and one of them here, and I have 1 charisma, which, as you can see, I have no place to put, so I put it on the miss track on the second space, and I will draw another 3. And this is my next result. So the miss goes here, but I also have a charisma, which is also a miss, and I have this 1 strength token, which I will put here. And I could also draw another time, but if I fill in the last space on the miss track, I have to stop drawing after that draw. I can't draw anymore, but I can also take a break and not draw anything more right now. And as you can see, I have 2 abilities activated, 1 not, and I have 4 miss tokens. And I will stop right here. So the players continue, as you can see, to draw 3 runes at a time and allocate them to their feats or miss tracks, right? Because you have to allocate these to the miss, and any that don't fit anywhere here have to go on the miss track as well, until they individually stop or until all 5 miss track spaces are filled. Once all the players who are involved in combat stop or fill up their miss track, the planning phase ends and we can go into the resolution phase. So now I've stopped my planning phase in this situation and we are starting the resolution phase. Now, the first thing that you do in your resolution phase is that you check your miss track and apply all of the effects. And let's talk about this for a moment. The miss track, as you can see, has 3 blue spaces, 1 space which is black and 1 which is red. Now, if my miss track was filled like this, or like this, for example, so only the blue track was filled, in the beginning of the resolution space, I would activate all of the blue statuses over here. And you can get new statuses by playing the game, and the game will sometimes tell you to add this, for example, a blue plus attack status or a red minus chronicle status, and you always add new statuses to the first space on the left, sliding the next ones here. So if I had a third status to add, I would slide this here, and add a new status here, and then the next one would push out this and move this one here, and so forth and so on. And these two are constant statuses that are printed on the board, and they never disappear. So if in the beginning of the resolution phase I had 1, 2, 3 or no miss tokens, I would be in the blue. So I would launch all the blue statuses on my board, all of them at once. So in this case I would get 1 chronicle point. If the miss tokens were here, so I had 4 miss tokens, I would launch nothing from here. And if I had 5 miss tokens, I would trigger all red statuses. So in this case, -2 health, but not the blue ones. Okay, so this is what's the first step of the resolution phase. So each player resolves their own miss track. So in my case, after my first draw, I would trigger nothing from here, and that would be it. And after that, all heroes that are involved in the combat decide whether they want to trigger any of their skills, so any cards that have all of their spaces filled in and have the keyword skill here, or any attacks that have the fast keyword next to them. So this happens before the enemy's attack. You can either trigger skills or fast attacks, and when you trigger them, you just, tilt them or move them up a bit, or maybe even tap them like in MTG or something like that to show that you have used a card. So in this case, for example, if I use the skill, any one hero could gain a 1+ attack or 1+ defense skill into their miss track. And that would benefit somebody. So after you've activated all of your skills and fast attacks, if you had any, like for example, this is a fast attack and I could activate it by paying 2 chronicle points, but I don't have them right now. First is the enemy's turn to attack. And if we are in a situation like so on the board, that we have 1 hero and 2 enemies, so each enemy will attack with an enemy attack card. And before we draw an enemy attack card, a hero has to declare who is going to be the defending player. So if we, for example, had 2 players in this space and we went to this next step of the resolution phase, we say that this Draugr attacks, and you, as the players, have to decide who will be taking the damage before pulling an enemy attack card. And you say, for example, that the warrior will take damage. So we flip an enemy attack card, and it's a +1, as you can see. So a +1 means that the 2 attack of the Draugr plus the 1 from the card gives me 3 that this warrior will have to lose in health, unless they have some block abilities active with both rune tokens occupied that they can trigger in order to block this. So for example, if this was occupied and this player was attacked, he would be able to use this block to block by 2, so he would get only 1 damage out of those 3. And then the other enemy attacks, we put this card into this card, we draw another one before we say which player is going to be attacked, and this attack, as you can see, is a +0, so the player will be attacked only for 2 damage, and then the enemy attack is resolved, and then we can attack ourselves. And we do it in a very similar fashion, so we can trigger any remaining abilities and collect all of those axes with attacks from those and attack our enemies. And we mark their health or the hits they got using those heart tokens. So for example, if I attack for 3 using this strike and the Draugr has 4 health, I would put 3 hearts next to one of those Draugrs, 1, 2, 3, I won't be pulling out anymore, but you get the picture, and he would have 1 more health to be able to be killed. If the enemy has any shields, then you have to reduce the damage by the shields, and if you manage to kill all of the enemies during this battle, each player after the battle will get a single XP token. If you don't manage to kill all of the enemies, then after the next round happens, so after the travel phase of the next round, in the next engage phase, you will have to, or you may engage those enemies again and finish off the job. So this is basically the combat in a nutshell in this case. And one thing that I forgot, after combat, you return all of the tokens, also from the miss track, into the bag, like so. And you also take those 4 feats that you drew for that combat and you place them on the discard. So for the next combat, you'll be taking these 4 feats, and after you use them up, you shuffle everything in the discard and place it back here. Okay, last thing before we go into the final phase of the game is that you can also use items during combat. And items can also be obtained during the game. Once you obtain a new item, you put it below the item that you have here in this item slot. And the rule is that once you use an item, you put it on the bottom of this deck, uncovering a new item that was below, and this one is the active one to be used again. So you basically cycle through those items all the time by using them, and at the beginning of your next game you can put this deck in whatever order you want, so that all of your items that you've collected can be cycled through. And that's basically it. Now, I've mentioned the XP tokens, and let's talk about what happens when you gather free XP and can level up a character. If you have 3 of those XP tokens, you spend those free XP tokens immediately, and you draw 3 top cards from those upgrade feats. Here we go. We've got 3 level 2 feats. We choose 1 to replace from this deck of the feats that we have existing, and we remove the level 1 feat from play. So if I, for example, chose the Strike 2, I would substitute it for Strike 1, and I would have an upgraded deck. And then the remaining 2 that I haven't chosen, 1 of them lands on the top of the deck and 1 on the bottom of the deck, ahead of those 2 ultimate ones. So, for example, here. And I place the deck back. Okay guys, so bear with me for one more moment, because we have the last phase, and this is the explore phase. So in the explore phase, heroes in regions which are free of enemies can interact with points of interest that we have on the board where they are located next to, or locations that are sleeved here. And if you are in a space that has nothing, you do nothing in the explore phase. So basically, if you defeated all of the enemies, you can interact with a card that is sleeved here and has some effect. Or if you are in an area that has no enemies because it had no enemies before and you did an event and it has a point of interest, you can interact with the point of interest that was uncovered on the point of interest board. And you usually then have to go back into the Book of Sagas, read something and push your adventure forward. And the last thing that I will mention is also what happens when you die. Because when you die, when you lose your final point of health, that doesn't mean the end of the game. You basically come back with 6 health points and you come back on the board where you were at the time when you died. So you only come back to 6, not your maximum health points, but you also need to draw at random one of these weird cards and add them to your feats. And the rules also state that you will have to add a special story card into the stories section of the adventure board. And this weird card is something that gives you, as you can see, 3 chronicle points once it's filled, when it's drawn during battle and it's filled in. And if you defeat an enemy in this combat when this was filled, you can remove it from the game. And without any spoilers, if you don't manage to remove this weird card from the game before the game ends, the card that you've put into here, the story card that you've put into here, will have some mysterious effect that I don't even know because I haven't managed to trigger it yet. Thankful. Okay guys, so I think that this is it. I won't be going into any more detail right now about this game because I don't want to spoil anything for you, and the rulebook explains all the other minute details pretty well. But now you have a basic overview of the rules and you know more or less what's going on and how to play this game. I hope that this video helped you at least a bit. Thanks for watching this. This was Trudvang Legends, a campaign game set in the Trudvang world, the RPG world, by Cool Minis or Not, the board game is by Cool Minis or Not. My name was Lone Vic. If you want to support my channel, you can click the like button, subscribe, ring the notification bell, leave a trace in the comments. If you have any questions about the rules, please ask in the comments section. I will try to answer and help you out with anything that I can, up to the limits of my knowledge. And for now, thanks for watching, have a great day, and see you soon in another of my videos on this channel. Bye bye!